Hello, this is the second part of the walkthrough video for Lab 303. Let's do a quick recap from the last video. So we had identified the different dimensions as vehicle, service, mechanic, diagnosis, and we said that since per week and per month we are talking about time, then time also needs to be one of the dimensions. Now let's talk about the attributes of these dimensions. So we identify service code and description as potential attributes of service. If we look at vehicle, then type of the vehicle and the make of the vehicle looks like some attributes that we would like to capture for vehicle. Then let's look at mechanic. Right now we don't know, but if we don't have anything, then at least mechanic's ID and name makes sense for us to store it. Then diagnosis, each diagnosis has a code, so that's one attribute we will be storing, and the description of diagnosis. So let's highlight those. And finally, for time, we will need to figure out a way to have the attributes for time. We may have something like the date, the month, the year, maybe quarter, and the week. We will do that as we get later into their problem. So now let's look at measures and discuss how do you find the measures here. So I'm going to pick a different color to highlight these. So how do we know what a measure is? It helps us, these are usually the quantities, and helps us figure out calculations. So let's read the first question. It says count the number of services of each kind per week and per month. Okay, so we already have per week and per month handled in the dimension. We need to count the number of services. Well, count is an aggregate function, and based on your knowledge of SQL, you know that if you wanted to count something, all you have to do is you already have services and you can just count how many rows. So we don't need to have the count number of services as one of the measures. We can easily calculate it based on what we have so far. Then examine the average cost of services. So average is again an aggregate function, but cost of services looks like this is a numerical value that we will be dealing with, and we have not captured it anywhere. So this is going to be our measure, one of the measures. Next question is analyze the number of services of each kind based on the vehicle type and make. So we have already captured vehicle type and make, and again number of services, we can easily count how many services. So we'll use count for that. We don't need a measure. We can calculate that while executing. Then next question is examine the average cost of service. Again, same cost of service. So this is the same measure that we highlighted earlier for each vehicle type and vehicle make. So we already have captured vehicle type, vehicle make. For each of these, we need to do the average cost. The next question says examine the average time in services. Now this is something, let's see if we have already captured this one. So average is the aggregate function, time in services. This is different from this time here, per week and per month. Here we are talking about when a vehicle comes for service, how much time duration does it spend in the service? We have not captured it anywhere. This is going to be a numerical variable, and it will help us do the calculations. So that is going to be one of our measures. And then again, for each vehicle type and make, we are going to use that. Examine the average cost of services. We already have that. Examine the average cost of services by each mechanic. So looks like we have two measures here, cost of services and time in services. Once again, these two times are different. This one is about how many cars or vehicles are coming in for service. So basically with this dimension, you are measuring what day of the week, what year, what month did the car come in for service. So basically you are capturing the date of service. And then in time in service, think about you are capturing the time spent in the service. So if a car comes at 10 a.m. and leaves at 12 noon, then the time is going to be like 2 hours or 120 minutes, depending on how you want to measure it. So this is the duration of service, and this is the date of the service. So two different things here. Now, let's look at what is the fact or the grain of the table. We know that the grain of the table is the level of granularity of the data in the table, or what level are we storing the data for analysis. So let's go back and read our problem description. A vehicle repair shop has fleet cars that come in frequently for regular service. Okay. Each service has a service code. Each vehicle has certain type and make. When a vehicle enters the shop, a mechanic inspects the vehicle and diagnoses. So based on this statement, it looks like the level of analysis or the level of detail is each service. So we start recording data as soon as there is a car that or vehicle that is coming for service. So our level of analysis is service. And for each service, how is it defined? It is defined in terms of one vehicle, which mechanic is looking at it, what is the diagnosis, when did it come in, what date did it come in, and we also want to have what is the cost of the service, how much time was spent in the service. So by looking at the overall description and the dimensions and measures you have identified, I would say that the grain of this fact table is going to be each individual service, for which you can specify what is the vehicle, which mechanic looked at it, what was the diagnosis, when, what date did it come in, what was the cost of service, and how much time did it spend in service. Make sure to write your responses in full sentences. Now, the next part of this question is draw a database diagram for problem that is given above, and then you need to paste a picture of the completed database diagram in this document.